All right, welcome everybody to the Lakers Legacy podcast where been there, done that. No, we haven't been here. We haven't seen or done that because only Luka's Doncićing that. That sounded a lot better in my head when I wrote that, but let's continue. I'm your host, Jonathan Hernandez, and I am joined by my co-host, Tommy Alexander. And Tommy, we picked a good time to take a bit of a break from the pod because in the time in between, the Lakers ended up dropping 4 straight games without LeBron James and without a lot of people, actually. But now they are back on track with a 3-game winning streak, third in the West, and now LeBron James and Rui Hachimura are due back soon. So, how are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I think, it is interesting. It was the 4 straight losses. It was LeBron being out. Obviously, that played a significant role. But, it's also like Rui was out, Hayes was out, DFS missed some of those games. We were like, Gabe missed 1 or 2 games. Like, we were severely sort of limited with our role player depth. And I think that's the thing about like the new team, right? With Luka as the second star is he's such a floor raiser but you have to have a floor to raise, I guess, is sort of the point. And with all of the depth out, it's hard to win. And I will say the games were so much more competitive. We did lose 4
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and the Nets game was like a rough one to sort of watch, but certainly that
Denver.
Bucks game was close. The Denver game was like obviously like, subject to some like questionable calls and just poor execution by G League players, frankly, down the stretch. We should have stolen that game. I mean, if I was
Yeah.
Denver, I'd be terrified after that game because they couldn't even stop our G League guys. But it was a good. It was that was one of those ones that's like almost like a win, even though it counts as a loss. But
Mhm.
yeah, it feels nice to be winning again. It feels nice to slowly start accumulating some of the guys back and getting guys healthy. And we're not in a bad spot. I think everyone we're competitive with, for seeding, we have a tiebreaker with, except for Houston, who we played 2 more times, and if we beat them both of those times, we have the tiebreaker with them as well. So
Mhm.
we're in a pretty good spot, even with all the injuries.
Yeah, it almost feels like the 4-game losing streak was the most easiest to asterisk and explain away because of all those injuries, and we could understand everything outside of pretty much the Brooklyn Nets game, which was just a clear lapse in focus. But yeah, now we're back on track. Today, let's focus on the Snow Time Lakers, Tres Leches, Dalton Knecht, Austin Reaves, and namely Luka Doncic, and the Lakers offense. Not to downplay the defense at all because it has held up very well in this last stretch, and guys like DFS, Jared Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes, and Jordan Goodwin have all been instrumental parts to the Lakers defense holding up. But for time's sake, I do want to focus on the 3 White Knights because they do kind of give us a glimpse into our near future without LeBron James. And I think that's what I kind of want to focus in on in this episode. Like, the last week and a half or so, this is kind of what it's going to look like without LeBron. Austin, Luka Doncic, and maybe Dalton Knecht. So why don't we start with Luka Magic? Because, yeah, I mean, we've gotten, almost a month of Luka now. Since last we talked, we've been able to digest, I don't know, like 4 or 5 more games of Luka Doncic, and yeah, it's been quite an incredible ride. Luka Doncic, we could go through the list of his accolades in just the last 8 or 10 games alone. Like, he's the first player since Kobe Bryant to string this many 20 plus point games in a row in a Lakers jersey. He's the first Lakers player to put up this many points, rebounds, assists in his first 20 or so games. Luka has now scored 29 plus points in 8 of his last 10 games. The 2 games in which he didn't score 29 plus points, he either had a triple-double or a near triple-double. His scoring and his 3-point shooting over this last stretch has been otherworldly. I think he's averaging like 13 3-point attempts and hitting like 5 a game. For me, I honestly still cannot reconcile his game because he's so slow, he's so methodical. Apart from his magical passes, his movements are not dynamic, they're not explosive, they're not particularly exciting. And yet he continues to bend the court and defenses to his will. And by the time you look up at the scoreboard, Luka Doncic has got Austin Reaves season averages of 20 points and 6 assists by halftime. Sometimes even sooner, like against the the Denver Nuggets last night. And so I just wanted to ask you, Tommy, any updated thoughts on Luka Doncic? Anything you've picked up in his game, watching him more closely day in, day out that you didn't beforehand? Because for me, I think the one thing that I've kind of honed in on about Luka's game is that he's just a master of timing. He is such a one of he has such a one of a kind unique way of delivering the ball to his teammates or delivering the ball into the hoop that relies just as much on when he delivers the ball than how he delivers it. Although how he delivers it is also pretty insane too, because every time I watch him snake into the paint, he does this extra gather drag step where he's able to keep his last foot planted. And even though it looks like he's about to release the shot, at the literal last second, he then passes it off to an open man. Or at the literal last second, he has the defender in a compromised position and he's draped all over Luka and he's either going to put the shot up or get fouled. And Luka has this uncanny way of just lulling defenders into sleep with his dribbles and his body blows, lowering his head and leveraging his weight against yours so that he can eventually strike and counter. Because on some occasions, I was watching Michael Porter Jr. last night, Tommy. It looked like Michael Porter Jr. had Luka Doncic cornered. It looked like he had Luka Doncic trapped. And then at the very last second, Luka does like a reverse spin move to the paint, and then he's got an easy layup. And the next thing you know, ball's in the basket, or again, you're in a compromised position, draped over him, fouling him. So that's what I've noticed most recently about Luka Doncic. He's the master of timing. He's an escape artist. But what have you noticed about his game recently?
I think the interesting thing about Luka is it's sort of what we've seen with other players over the course of, I think, NBA history who have the same type of archetype, meaning, you know, straight line speed. They're obviously not where you would expect like an NBA superstar to be, but I think there's more to athleticism than just straight line speed, right? And you see that with Luka. I mean, you throw like some of the most elite, like defenders, perimeter defenders in the NBA with length at him. And it doesn't matter. He's not running over all these guys, right? He's still, his first step is so quick and his game is so well rounded that like you have to honor him at the 3 point line. It's not like Russell Westbrook where it's like you can give him a little bit of space for runway because you want him to shoot jump shots. Like with Luka, you have to play up on him because otherwise he's going to see everything on the floor and make the right pass, or he's just going to drain a wide open shot on your head. And so you're kind of forced into playing up on him. And it, notwithstanding how like unathletic he looks, just like by comparison to, I don't know, like some of the more elite athletic point guards in the NBA or young stars, like it's not like, you know, you're guarding LaMelo Ball or Anthony Edwards out there in terms of what you would expect, at least in terms of explosiveness. But he takes one step and it's like he's right by his guy every time, it feels like. And by the way, this is him playing like mildly hobbled. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be clear, even when he's not hobbled, he's not that much faster than this. But you know, it's like it's like I think just seeing that like night in and night out, it really makes you think about the game a different way, right? It's almost like we're on the opposite side now of where we were with Jokic. Like we had one of the most athletic big men in NBA history, one of the best defensive big men in NBA history, who, you know, is a perennially in the conversation for defensive player of the year at the 5 position, one of the few guys who could switch 1 through 5 in the entire league. I mean, just like elite defense. And it didn't matter because every time he was matched up with Jokic, Jokic would put up 35-point triple doubles on his head, like efficiently and easily, you know? And so, that's sort of what we're getting now with Luka. And I think it's going to continue to come. I also think the thing that I've really liked about his game and the thing I think will help him sort of synergize with LeBron and Austin. And the other scorers or role players we have who could score a little bit on our team. Luka like is really, really aggressive, looking for his own shot early in games. I mean, it's like it feels like every game, he's in double digits scoring in the first quarter.
Not only
Uh,
that, he's outscoring the other team. It was like against the
yeah,
Suns, it was like Luka Doncic has 20 points. The Suns have 19. Against the Nuggets last night, it was 21-20. It's crazy.
yeah, he's having these like explosive first quarters, and it just sets the tone. And this is not like a new thing, right? He's had a history of doing this. We all remember, right, the Minnesota elimination game in the playoffs last year, where he came out in the first quarter and dropped 20 on the best defensive team in the league. Like he will do that in playoff games for us this year, at least one, maybe more, right? Playoff games where he is just going to come in and decide in the first quarter the game is over. And it just like sets the tone for the rest of the team, and it also puts LeBron in a position to sort of you know, feel the game out and save his energy for the fourth quarter. So you get to the fourth quarter and opposing defenses are so beaten down by having to deal with Luka for the first half, and then there's just like LeBron is just going to drive on their head the rest of the game, and it like works out really well. And same thing with Austin, right? Like it kind of lets those guys feel out the game more, and then you focus on their own scoring in the second half or in the fourth quarter. So those types of things I think make the fit with LeBron and Austin so much easier. I think when Luka came, it was the easy, obvious, quote unquote, uh, utilization was to move Austin to the bench. And I was like all in for, well, let's see what happens, but I didn't expect it was going to work. And I think the reason it's going to work is because of this. It's like Luka can just do what he wants to do scoring wise in the first quarter, and everybody else will sort of fill it in after that. And that's a formula that's going to carry us. And it's just going to make us
Well,
impossible to guard. And then by the one final point on the impossibility to guard, like Luka just has that like Kobe attribute of hitting the most demoralizing shots because
yes.
yeah, it's like you're all over like some like of course I think a knock on him as frankly was a knock on Kobe is the shot selection. Like he could be so much more efficient. He could hit those like LeBron Austin type efficiency numbers as a shooter if he wanted to, I think, but he takes these crazy shots that keep people sort of on their toes. And then, when you're least expecting it in the third quarter, it's like you're making a little mini run and all of a sudden he pulls up from 35 feet and hits a three to put the team up by 30. And it's just like, all right, let's just go home.
Yeah.
And
It's
so his knack for doing that has been like very impressive to watch.
it's all 4D chess for Luka Doncic, right? It's a constant tug and pull of what he's trying to do, and because he's so relentless. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like he does all these crafty moves in the paint and in the mid-range. He can get these layups and has these nice floaters with awesome touch. But at the end of the day, Luka Doncic is a perimeter player, and he is relentless with that three-point shot, dude. You can never rest easy. And the way that they've been defending him, I think the thing that I like about Luka too is he always adapts to the coverages that are before him. And
Yeah.
so that's what's dictating his game more than anything else. Although I will say, if he had his druthers, I think Luka Doncic likes pulling up for 3-point shots, which he does a very good job of hitting. But his relentless attack and always taking those shots is, I believe, what allows like the whole rest of the game to open up for him and his teammates. To your point, in the third quarter, all of a sudden it's a barrage of assists. But yeah, so far Luka Doncic is putting up all-star season averages in the first half alone. So it's been incredible to watch. So why don't we take it to break here? When we return, let's talk about Luka Doncic's co-star and sometimes just the main star for the Lakers in this recent run, and talk about Austin Reaves. All right, so we are back. Tommy, before we went to break, you had mentioned Luka's fit with LeBron James and Austin Reaves and why it'll work amongst all three of them. I think it'll especially work with Austin Reaves, Tommy, because LeBron James isn't going to be here for that much longer. And so I keep teasing this point, but we are seeing the future right now. And obviously, I have loved what I've seen between LeBron James and Luka Doncic on the court together, especially the way that LeBron James has ramped up his defensive intensity. But I will say, getting this look at Austin and Luka together, I am I want to make sure I use my words carefully because I'm not saying like let's just, throw LeBron James out the door, see you later, like some people are doing. Because I still think that type of archetype, like that athletic finisher who's also has such a high basketball IQ mind like LeBron James, that's the type of next star that I want next to Luka Doncic and even an Austin Reaves. But just getting this initial preview of what even just like Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves look like together, I'm a lot more, I wouldn't say excited, I'm a lot more I'm a lot less worried about the future without LeBron James. And obviously that was the whole point of the Luka Doncic trade, but I did have some trepidation with regards to, Luka and LeBron are working out so well. What's going to happen when LeBron is gone? Luka's not going to have this amazing safety valve next to him. Well, enter Austin Reaves. So Austin Reaves, since coming back from his calf strain, he looked very rough the first 3 games coming out of that. He had like a 3 for 14 game against the Brooklyn Nets. He couldn't hit any shot. He was pressing, trying to draw fouls, etc., etc. Well, since that Brooklyn Nets game, Austin Reaves has had 5 straight games with 22 plus points, which ties a season high stretch for him with 20 plus points in the totality of this season. And yeah, Austin has been in another realm and rhythm the last 5 games since obviously he stumbled out of the gate coming back from his calf injury. He's averaged around 30 points without LeBron James. I think like 7 rebounds, 7 assists, something crazy like that. His 37-point performance versus Denver with the South Bay Lakers was a masterclass that's only been rivaled by his career-high 45-point game versus Indiana, in which he was the main starter on the Lakers as well without LeBron and Luka. And so, yeah, Austin's growth this season has been very encouraging and at least for me, a little bit surprising. I did not think he could reach this level this quickly, especially with such a drastic change with regards to him no longer having his backcourt mate in D'Angelo Russell to lean on with regards to extra usage and playmaking help. But yeah, Austin's playmaking, particularly his shot making, the shake that he's shown recently, he has been playing like him, all caps, Austin Reaves for a hot minute now, especially if you wipe away his injured stretch. And so, yeah, what have you seen from Austin recently that kind of encourages you about the future of not only his pairing with like Luka Doncic, but just Austin's future as a player on the Lakers in general?
Yeah, so I think you and I are probably in similar boats. I mean, I thought like obviously Austin was a young player, is still is a young player and had room for improvement. I did not think that his ceiling was this high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, the guy is playing at like near all-star levels right now. I'll say it, right? And I'm factoring in both sides of the court because his defense has taken a significant leap. Um, but like just everything about his game. I mean, when JJ came in this season, he sort of made comments in the beginning of the season that were scared me a little bit, and they were like in similar vein to what we saw Ham try to do with Austin at times last year, which was, kind of play him as the primary ball handler. And it sort of felt like we were forcing him into a role he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't totally comfortable with. And we were like, okay, well, if he's going to be a primary ball handler, he has to be a primary ball handler to score. You still need another playmaker. We can't keep forcing this playmaking role on him. And it's, we heard things from JJ that suggested they were going to continue to do that. And it started the season like, it sort of felt like we were going that way again. So, I was worried that like we were forcing this guy into a position that he wasn't ready for, but we were wrong, right? I mean, he clearly was ready for it, and I mean, he's clearly delivered. I think the thing that encourages me moving forward is like, you know, we still have Austin at an extremely reasonable market price for next season, below market price, well below market price next season. but he's going to be up for an extension after that. And the question always lingered in the back of your mind, right? Like, you're going to have to pay this dude 30 million because somebody's going to, and, or, someone's going to try to pay him 25 at least. And can you build a championship team if you're paying Austin Reaves 25 million plus? Like, where do you find your other stars? Like, how much money is left over? Like, is this really worth it? And now the thing that gives me encouragement, I say sort of moving forward here, is like, yeah, I think Austin is like worth that. I think Austin can be your second star. Um, and certainly if you can keep him for in the like somewhere in the 30 or sub 30 range, you can easily add another 2 stars or a star and a half next to him. But the point is, like, he's going to play up into that. It's like you see so often what kills teams is you end up having to overpay a guy just to keep them because you have no other options in free agency. And it sort of was, the concern was we would head down that path. So we would pay, 25-30 million dollars for a 15-5-5 guy who, is really good, works hard, everybody likes him, but that's a lot to be paying for that type of player. And now it just feels like gladly you give him that money. And you're like, you could be the number 2 guy on a team. I mean, not necessarily, you don't necessarily want him to be your number 2 guy, but like he can be. And that's the crazy thing about how much his game has developed in every aspect. I mean, he's, like I said, the shooting efficiency has been amazing. The playmaking has been amazing. The defense has been amazing. And he's sort of developed himself into a player that even when he has an off night shooting, which will happen, he can still impact the game in other ways. And I think he's learned from Luka. He's learned from LeBron, obviously over the years. And yeah, he's
Sorry.
just,
Yeah, I was going to say, because you just started rattling off the people that he's learned from, but I literally, in the back of my mind, was thinking, doesn't it seem like Austin Reaves has sort of just absorbed all of the qualities and skills that he's learned from all of his different teammates over the last few years, in terms of not even just LeBron James, not even just Luka Doncic, but like he's starting to pass the ball and make these pick and roll reads like D'Angelo Russell. He's picked up some stuff from D'Lo. He's picked up some stuff from Malik Monk, even from Russell Westbrook and Rajon Rondo, not just in terms of how to approach the game off the court from a mentality standpoint, but I'm literally seeing stuff in the way that he's reading the floor and being more patient that I remember from how D'Angelo Russell runs the floor, how he orchestrates an offense, how Malik Monk would take these step back threes and use his shiftiness to get to the basket or relocate somewhere on the 3-point line. So it's just crazy that it's all starting to culminate for Austin all at once at just the perfect time, so.
yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, it's like, it's crazy we're even having the conversation. I mean, we aren't, but people are having the conversation of whether Austin is like the best quote unquote third option in the NBA, whatever that means. But he's like elevated himself to that status where you are clearly the third best guy on a team with Luka and LeBron, who were like 2 of the best players of all time.
Yeah.
And like, it's, and he has earned his spot there. And like, again, every sign on paper pointed to the fact that Austin should not be starting with those guys. And he's not only starting, but he's like thriving. And he's shown that like, either of those guys needs to take a break, he'll step up and drop 30. Yeah, he can pick up the slack. I mean, it's like we've talked about this in the context of Luka and LeBron, where it feels like it must be so overwhelming for teams where like LeBron checks out and you look over and Luka's checking in and vice versa. But when you add Austin to the equation, it's like he's developing into another guy who sort of fits that mold. It's like if he's on the court, he's dangerous. And that's like a pretty impressive feat, I think.
And dude, some of his crossovers and his behind the back dribbles, the combos that he's stringing where he's getting dudes dancing, that lob to Koloko last night, they're insane, man.
Yeah.
And he's just operating at another level. And the thing that he's picked up from Luka is this weird, like, one-handed over-the-shoulder no-look pass that he's been slinging to Jackson Hayes for these cutting dunks. It's crazy. The fact that Austin Reaves has been able to learn from such a plethora of different NBA players, and he's been able to learn from the best in LeBron James and now like the second best playmaker probably in the world right now in Luka Doncic. It's incredible. I'm not sure if I want to open this can of worms, but with regards to Austin Reaves, I have been getting these comments recently amidst Austin's hot stretch of people wanting to hammer us for our previous D'Lo versus Austin takes, which we've just hinted at. And I've been getting a lot of comments like, y'all said we should bench Reaves and build around D'Lo, you dumb motherfuckers. And so, I don't know. I just wanted to quickly address that, not to detract away from Austin and start talking about D'Lo or anything like that. And I'll just say you can give your piece after I give mine. First off, I don't think we've ever said we should build around D'Lo. To the extent that we did, it was merely we should probably re-sign this guy and give him the ball more. Because when we said those things, it was in the context of D'Lo dropping probably one of his best career years in the NBA last season, in the regular season, besides his Brooklyn season. So we said that in the context of what he was doing, that incredible stretch he had towards the second half of the season. And we said, hey, we should probably re-sign this guy and give him the ball more because the offense seems to be flowing better with him. And we always made sure, at least in my memory, we always made sure to caveat our thoughts on the D'Lo versus Austin debate with, we're talking about who's better now, not who will be better in the future or who the Lakers team wants to build around. And when we were having these discussions last year, again, D'Lo literally had a better season than Austin in the regular season last year. And it's crazy to think, but Tommy, what Austin is averaging this season, 19-6 on 44% from the field and 36% from three, people will forget that D'Lo literally put up those numbers last year. 18-6, 45% from the field, 41% from three on higher volume, on better efficiency, more assists, less turnovers. And in games without LeBron James, people want to talk about Austin Reaves averaging 30, 7-7. Yeah, D'Lo averaged 24 points and 11 assists and ran the offense better. So I don't think we were being outlandish in our evaluation of the two at the time. And if you remember, even this season, the first few games after D'Lo got traded, the team was struggling offensively and Austin was turning the ball over left and right, figuring out how to run the offense by himself. Since then, he's improved as a playmaker tremendously, and this whole conversation is really more of a testament to how quickly and how fast Austin has grown in just the last few months, to the point where he's made us eat crow. But I just want to defend us a little bit because people are just starting to extend the conversation to hyperbolic levels, saying that we always said Austin was never going to be good and, you know, D'Lo should be the point guard of the future, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to remind people that we were talking about an entirely different Lakers team from even the start of the season. We were talking about last year's Lakers team that very much needed D'Lo to make it to the playoffs. Yes, he fell off against the Denver Nuggets again, and that is the primary reason why most fans have typically sided Austin's way, which is totally fair because he's a playoff riser. His floor is much higher than D'Lo, even though D'Lo's ceiling up until this point seemed to be higher than Austin's when he had it going. But all that to say, the discussions we had about D'Lo and Austin, I think, to give us some credit, made sense during that time. Since that time, Austin Reaves unshackled and unbridled. Austin Reaves is clearly the better player than D'Angelo Russell right now, if we remove all context and make everything equal. I don't know if you have anything else to add on this discussion, but I just wanted to clear the air. At the very least, Tommy, it's good to know that we have avid listeners who come out of the shadows and like to attack us for our previously quote-unquote bad takes. So they're still listening.
Yeah, they're still listening. No, I mean, look, it's like, I think to your point, and this is not running from what we said, we definitely said at the time, like, you know, we should be playing D'Lo more. I think that's like, first of all, there's two things there. I think one, that's different than saying build around D'Lo. I think where the team was and what the goals were on that short LeBron AD timeline, D'Lo was the more ready player at that time to contribute. And to your point, running off his stats from last year, that's why we said that. Given the same opportunity, D'Lo was putting up better numbers at that time. And so at that time, it sort of made a little bit of sense. Obviously, that's not correct long term. And, you know, Austin has elevated his game to levels that I did not think were possible. All of that stuff changes the context. The fact that Austin has been able to fit in seamlessly with LeBron and Luka changes the context because it sort of shows you how he can fit with two other stars as you build a roster moving forward. Um, a lot of things have changed. I think D'Lo, not just numbers wise offensively, somehow was even by defensive metrics playing better defense than us. I mean, they were both really bad. We had one of the best, like worst defensive backcourts in the league, but like somehow D'Lo was able to, even contribute in that aspect more than Austin. And so given his relative experience, the fact that he was literally an all-star in his career and all of these things, it's like, yeah, for that time, D'Lo made more sense. I don't think we were pining to like trade Austin for, Jonas Valanciunas or something like that, right? It's like we weren't trying to get rid of him. We were just saying like, yeah, look, it's like give D'Lo a contract because we need another ball handler, we need another playmaker, we need another point guard. I mean, had we known we were going to get Luka, had we known Austin was going to
Yeah,
like rise
that
to this level, it sort of changes things. But I mean, look, it's fair. I think that's like the nature of these types of things where you record like your raw takes as things are happening. It's like, yeah, in hindsight, you look stupid sometimes, and I think this is one where it's fair to say like, we could have uh been more patient, but I don't know. Now there's been a lot of times where many other people weren't patient; they just weren't
yeah.
recorded.
Yeah, that's true. And at the end of the day, you have a kid, you have a second kid coming. I'm about to get married. I really don't care. I will eat crow on my bad Austin D'Lo takes, even though again I think they were pretty fair for the time. Now, what I will eat crow on, Tommy, is earlier this season I had a discussion about Dalton Knecht and Austin Reaves, and I think in November I was like, you know what? If forced to pick, I think I would trade Austin Reaves for Dalton Knecht first. Although I did caveat myself back then and said if I was trying to win a championship tomorrow, I would still pick Austin Reaves, but long term, I'd probably pick Dalton Knecht. Now, having said that and seeing more of the season and how they've played out and everything like that, I would still pick Austin Reaves now, obviously, for the now near future and the later future, even though Austin's like 2 or 3 years older than Dalton Knecht. So there, I will eat crow on my terrible Dalton Knecht over Austin Reaves take. Having said that, Tommy, sometimes it's not about DK versus AR versus D'Lo. Sometimes it's about DK and Austin Reaves. So really quickly to close this episode, talk to me about Dalton Knecht because he has really refound his groove this rookie season in this last month of March. He's got his second win back ever since that tumultuous and weird, like, shady time with the rescinded Mark Williams trade. But yeah, Dalton Knecht, 8 out of his last 10 games in double figures. This is his best sustained stretch of offensive proficiency this season, even more than his hot November stretch. He had 32 points in Denver, putting up 27 shots and knocking down a bunch of big buckets. He's found a groove with the ball in his hands more and shown off much more variety and versatility in his offensive game with regards to attacking the basket, not just settling for the first catch and shoot 3-point shot that he gets. And yeah, he's just been able to flash more of his high offensive ceiling. Some of the things that made me sort of go kind of crazy in November to the point where I was like, yeah, I take DK over Austin. But yeah, obviously things have leveled out and I can be very realistic about my evaluation of Dalton Knecht right now and understand his defensive deficiencies. Having said that, I still think he's even improved defensively as well, and there are still very obvious ways that he can continue to improve his defensive awareness, but at the very least, he still continues to crash the glass. Sometimes he shows himself to be a very good help team defender, rotating in the right spots and remaining active. And the thing that I've liked about Dalton recently is he's just been like, you can sense the pep in his step and the juice that he's carrying with him, especially on these transition leakouts where he has been the Lakers' most dynamic finisher on the break with LeBron James absent, besides maybe Jackson Hayes. But Dalton Knecht is usually the one leaking out because he's guarding on the perimeter, whereas Jackson Hayes is typically in the paint. But yeah, your quick thoughts on what Dalton Knecht has done recently.
Yeah, Dalton has been great. I shared a stat I saw with you earlier today where it was like in March he's shooting 40% from three on three makes a game. It seems like he's had his ups and downs as every rookie does. It seems like he's hitting his stride at the right time because we're about to enter the playoffs. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, how significant of a role he's going to have on the playoff rotation. but because it tends to tighten, and we have a lot more veterans than him, obviously. But there will be moments where we need spacing and we need shooting, and he'll be thrown out there. And so, I feel very, very comfortable with where he is right now. I think for a rookie season, he's having an amazing one, and I'm really excited to see how he continues to develop. I mean, I'm almost of the camp like Luka is the future. Luka is going to need shooting. Dalton is an elite shooter. And we, if like, I know we tried to trade him for a center. We seem to be doing fine with the center we have. And, with similar types of, maybe we could find similar level of talent to sort of fill in some depth. But, but yeah, I think there's a very good case to just keeping this guy and seeing what happens. And his upside is, who knows what it is, right? We saw what he did at Tennessee. Um, I've nothing, no reason to believe he can't hit those levels in the NBA, and he'll just keep getting better and better. And we've got the right coach now. I think that's like a big thing too, is going back to the Austin and D'Lo stuff. Is does Austin hit this level with Darvin Ham as our coach still? Who knows, right? Does Dalton Knecht take the next step with Darvin Ham as our coach? Probably not. And I think now we have the right staff in place to sort of develop these types of players. Really hone in on the things that they're strong at, and sort of try to minimize their weaknesses. And if we can minimize, like, there are things that Dalton does defensively that work. He rebounds well. He's got good size. He's athletic. And so if we can try to minimize some of his deficiencies, who knows like what this guy's upside is. So I'm excited to see what happens to him moving forward. But he's had a great second half of the season, or post, the couple weeks after the trade deadline portion of the season, and he'll play a critical role for us as we try to like establish our seating here closing. But his ability to just like come in and just unload points is very helpful. So
In limited minutes too, right? It's crazy that I feel like Dalton has raised his floor over this last month, because he can come in only 18 minutes and get you double digit points, which is what this team really needs. And then you saw that Denver game, and I feel like not enough people are talking about this, because probably half the Lakers fan base didn't watch the game because Luka Doncic wasn't playing. But like, do you know how insane it is for Austin Reaves and Dalton Knecht to both put up 32 plus points and almost win the game against the Denver Nuggets, against a fully healthy Denver Nuggets? Like, we should be talking about that game much more instead of it being lost in the ether, because 37 points from Austin, 32 points from Dalton Knecht, a rookie. And again, that's just like shows off his tremendous ceiling, both of their tremendous ceiling, and gives us a very near viewpoint of what this future could look like starting next season or the season after that. So yeah, encouraging and promising signs ahead for all of our tidy whiteys. So with that said, that'll do it for this episode. Snow Time Lakers, Trace Leches, whatever you want to call them, they're all good, and we don't have to pit them against one another. With that said, we will catch you guys next time. Follow us on Twitter at Lakers Legacy Pod. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel with the same name, at Lakers Legacy Pod. Give us a 5-star rating and review on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify. And Tommy, I will catch you later.
peace.
See ya.